Good morning, y'all. Josh, the Severe Weather. Happy Thursday to you. Tons to talk about here in the weather department. Things are going bonkers with extreme temperatures all across the country. If you are in the white zone here, you are in the minority here. That is the area where temperatures are actually around average. Much of the west and the northern U.S., much below average. Much of the east and the south, much above average. There really is no middle ground here. This is just a very serious setup here. And the reason why we are seeing the La Nina we've been in for 3 years very quickly fading. It is fading at an extreme rate and going towards an El Nino here, it looks like by the summer. And as things transition out of that, we see things kind of going into hyper mode here when it comes to weather. And this will likely mean a lot of severe weather this spring, a lot of temperature changes, and maybe some surprise storms for some of us here, even as we round out the winter season. Speaking of winter, much of the West has winter storm watches and warnings out. Pink are winter storm warnings. And that is all the coastal ranges from Washington down to California and the interior of the Southwest. Blizzard warnings over the southern Sierra Nevada and the mountains of Southern California are in a rare blizzard warning, and flash flood watch across the LA Basin, San Diego, and the Southern Valley as well. So California going to see some extreme weather here over the next several days, and I am going to talk a lot more about that as well. Across the interior of the West, we're cleaning up from a ton of snow over parts of Utah, Colorado, and southern Wyoming. We still have blizzard warnings in effect here in the Central Rockies in the highest terrain. Our storm is beginning to wrap up into Dakotas and Minnesota today, but we still have blizzard conditions expected at least this morning into early this afternoon with tons of snow on the ground. That continues as well across the northwestern part of Wisconsin, and winter storm warnings continue over the upper Midwest and across the interior of New England and northern New York, bounded by winter weather advisories all the way down to the Poconos. And in the eastern U.S., things are pretty quiet once you get south of this boundary. We don't really have anything to talk about other than some high winds just west of the Smokies and local river flood warnings, and then a few dense fog advisories as well on the coastal bend of Texas, the central Gulf Coast, and as well across Chicagoland area over in the northwestern parts of Ohio. But things are starting to improve after an icy mess across southern lower Michigan and western New York, but very icy yesterday. And if you look at temperatures in the east, these are our morning lows, and 73 in Knoxville is the temperature you're waking up to. That is the average high for early May. And that is the morning temperature here on February 23rd. Just insane. But you can see our boundary very clear here, right across the Mid-Atlantic region. When you get south of Prince William County, we're in the 60s. When you get north, we're in the 40s. So there's a very well-defined frontal wedge right here, and that is going to lift slowly north and east. And areas that have saw some snow on the front end yesterday in Pennsylvania will be breaking out the shorts this afternoon. Just very extreme. Our cold front continues to press southward into Oklahoma and North Texas. Let me shift over so you guys can see the central part of the country. And it's brutally cold this morning, obviously across a good chunk of the northern United States, some of the less populous areas dealing with that. But you can see in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, 62, but if you go up west of Denton, it's in the 30s. So this cold front will continue to press south and east, but it's going to do so kind of slowly, despite this massive area of cold that's moving south and eastward. But the coastal bend of Texas in the 70s, North Texas will be teens, 20s, and 30s this morning. Very extreme. And you can see this temperature anomaly on the map here. This is the European model, and you see the warmth intensifying today over the east, and then we will start to cool down at the end of the week. The Gulf states stay warm, and in fact, we bounce right back over the end of the weekend into next week, and another wave of warm weather expected next week over much of the southeast, the Ohio Valley, and the southern plains. The west remains cold, especially Nevada and California, but definitely some warming coming here over the weekend across the northern plains, where it's kind of like a yo-yo or a roller coaster where we go from 40 below average to about 30 above average very easily. It's like it doesn't even phase things. And even by the end of next week, we're right back to warm across much of the east, with the exception of coastal New England, which we could be dealing with a winter storm. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more here as well. Here are your 24-hour temperature changes. A big drop over the Ohio Valley coming today into tonight, while it warms up quickly here in the Northeast from yesterday's chill. The West does see some moderation, except in California. As we get to the weekend, though, it turns a lot colder here in the Northeast and across the Carolinas. Our front will drop all the way down into North Florida. but it's going to warm right back up here later on into the weekend. Weather Bell will show you guys that here. It's a little slow to load, but you see temperatures moderating right back here as we get to Sunday and Monday of next week, cooling off across the west. So a lot of back and forth as the weather goes into overdrive. Today's highs across much of California are all going to be record low highs for this date. One of our coldest stretches of weather in modern history across California, the West Coast, all the way up to Seattle. The interior of the West will see record low highs as well. As we move to the central part of the country, we see less of that, but this part of the map shows us that we have record low highs in Nebraska and record highs in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And as we move into the eastern United States, this is going to be the warmest stretch of weather we've seen in several years today, with record highs and maybe record all-time February highs for some parts of the Southeast. As we reach 80 degrees in Washington, D.C., 75 in Parkersburg, West Virginia, 76 in Asheville, low to mid 80s in North Carolina, mid 80s in South Carolina and Georgia, and low 90s expected across the interior of Central and South Florida as we have an early preview of summer here today. And the reason for that, we have a strong subtropical ridge of high pressure that continues to deflect the storm track to the north and east. This has actually strengthened over the last couple of days, and it is at its peak today. As we get into the weekend, it stays intact here over the northern Gulf, but does weaken some, allowing our front to drop southward. And we see a rise in surface pressure, so a much cooler day Saturday in the Carolinas is going to be kind of a wet, kind of crappy day. So if you want to do outdoor activities, Friday is going to be the day to do it in the Carolinas. And even as we get into Saturday afternoon, we could see a light wintry mix around the DC area. So we're talking a high today of 80 degrees. 2 days later, we could be dealing with a little bit of light snow in the DC region. So yeah, definitely hyperactive weather. Out west, you can see this massive storm plowing into California, especially south of the Bay Area. Lots of snow across the interior of California with rain along the coastal plain. And that will move in on Sunday to the southwest. And by the time it gets onto the high plains here, we are likely to see a major severe weather outbreak with quickly dropping surface pressures and increasing wind over parts of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas as we get to Sunday evening and into Sunday night. That low pressure tracks north, and we could deal with another wave of ice, but this one farther north. In fact, north of the area that's been dealing with the snow, north of the Twin Cities. So northern Wisconsin into northern lower Michigan. Could have an ice storm on Monday. That spreads into the northeast where cold air awaits it. So snow could thump on the front end here Monday night, going over to a wintry mix and then some rain. But southern New England, mainly north of New York City, Monday into Tuesday, could have a significant winter storm. We've got another storm moving into the west at the end of the month, and that will spread on to the plains for the second half of next week. And we could be dealing with some extremes on both ends here with warmth in the southeast, heavy rain across parts of the mid and deep south, and maybe even some snow on the backside here at the end of next week. But the models do not agree completely on how that's going to play out just yet. Here's the European model, and I'll show you all where things start to diverge here. As we get on to Sunday, we see the big storm moving out onto the plains from the Rockies Sunday night. Lots of severe weather expected. This low is expected to track a little bit farther south than where the GFS had it, just south of Chicago, meaning our severe weather threat may be focused more on the Ohio and Tennessee valleys on Monday, but heavier snow across the Twin Cities, where if I showed you the GFS, it showed freezing rain over the rain. So a bit of a drop here in the colder air coming a little farther down, but this still shows a significant storm for New England and western and central New York on Tuesday morning, Monday night, Tuesday morning. So maybe significant snow coming to New England here as we end the month. And here's our next storm moving into California in the middle of next week. And that is going to track farther north than what the GFS shows and bring heavy snow to the central and northern plains and likely a severe weather outbreak down south Thursday and Friday. And this one could have some stronger tornadoes with it. But again, it's about 8 days out, so I don't want to overhype it at this point. But right now, the way the model shows it on the European, this could be a very significant storm with a lot of severe weather followed by crashing cold temperatures. So a lot to talk about here in the future. The European shows our storm in the northeast still holding on with a little bit of frozen precipitation this morning, but it is starting to change over to rain and things quickly warming up this afternoon. we may see a little bit of rain popping up in the Carolinas. Notice the highs in Raleigh were showing to be in the upper 80s a couple days ago, now lower 80s. Reason for that will be the increase in cloud cover. We may see a few scattered showers, maybe even a rumble of thunder this afternoon as the front moves in, and then it's through here tomorrow. And then as we get to the weekend, showers move back north and east into colder air. And Saturday morning, we could see a little bit of ice setting up here on the Blue Ridge and just west of the Shenandoah Valley. And then maybe a little bit of light snow breaks out around the District of Columbia and across the eastern shore of the Chesapeake into southern Delaware. I don't think it amounts to much snow, but maybe just some wet flakes with temps in the mid 30s here on Saturday morning into Saturday afternoon over the Delmarva. Again, this is not going to shut things down, but just notice how quickly the temperature tumbles from 80 degrees into the 30s here on Saturday. As we go into New England, the Northeast and New England, and let me go back a model run because I know I just confused everyone here. We see that while it's going to be dry on Friday, we could have a light overrunning snow event in New York State on Saturday morning, including Long Island and southern Connecticut. Not going to amount to much, I don't think, but just something to be aware of if you have any travel plans early this weekend in the Northeast. That moves out, and it looks like another wave comes through New England here on Sunday. But the bigger storm is likely to impact the area Monday night and into, this is midnight Monday night, Tuesday morning. We could see a little front end snow around New York City and North Jersey, but quickly that changes over to frozen and then light rain. But it looks like maybe some heavier snow across southern New England here by early Tuesday morning. Winds are also going to be an issue. We see stronger wind gusts coming out of this storm from the southwest by early next week, with wind gusts 70 to 80 miles per hour and severe weather likely in this region here. And this storm is going to bring a lot of strong winds and probably some power outages all the way up to the Great Lakes and Tennessee Valley on Monday, with wind gusts over 60 miles per hour possibly. And even in the East Coast here, we could see gusts over 40 miles per hour here by Tuesday. And the pattern repeats itself with more unsettled weather here as at the end of next week, with more strong winds expected. All right, so let's talk about snow totals. Here's storm number 1, still dumping a few inches across Maine and southern Canada, maybe even up to 6 to 8 inches. Storm 2 pounding California here over the weekend, just lots of snow. And then another storm coming down into the northwest here later in the weekend. And you'll see amounts here in the east are pretty light, except right around Huron into Ontario. But as the storm in the west moves up into the plains and then eventually the Great Lakes, we have another significant snow expected here on Tuesday, and maybe a major snow across New England. Let me zoom in and show you all that here. And you guys can see this is the GFS for next Monday night and Tuesday, showing the potential for a widespread foot of snow from the Poconos and central New York eastward all the way towards Boston, and just north of the south coast here. We see amounts over a foot, but even near the coast, we could see significant snow. This is the GFS. The European model is not quite as robust. It shows amounts that are about half of what the GFS shows, but nonetheless, a big enough storm to maybe bring some accumulation all the way down to Allentown, I-78 corridor here into New York City, and at least the northern shore of Long Island could see a few inches of snow. So that's going to be the end of February as March roars in like a lion here across the Northeast. And some very interesting things happening near the coast. We could see this storm developing into a nor'easter and bringing a heavy wave of snow on its backside. So we look at, oh gosh, thanks a lot, Weather Bell. We look at snow totals here potentially through the next week exceeding 2 feet across parts of New England and well over a foot in southern New England into parts of the interior Northeast, even some light amounts here close to central Maryland. So a very volatile weather pattern here. The European shows this as well. It's a little bit different looking than the GFS, but you can see a major area of snow here Monday night, Tuesday, and early Wednesday. That moves out, and maybe another one coming up through the Great Lakes at the end of next week. But the run before it showed that farther south across the southern and central plains, including St. Louis and Chicago. So somebody's going to get a lot of snow, but you can see things are definitely not set in stone at this point yet. All right, out west, we've got a big storm, blizzard warnings in effect for the mountains here of LA and Ventura counties. Over 6 feet of snow potentially here when you get over into the southern mountains of Cal. This is a record snowfall, something we just don't see. Maybe some places even get 100 inches of snow out of this, and all that's going to be over the next 3 to 4 days. Rain will also be a problem in Southern Cal, around 3 to 4 inches in LA, 6 inches in Pasadena over by the Rose Bowl, 5 inches in Sandburg. So a lot of rain coming. We're going to see widespread problems here across California, no question about it here. Um, and as you go farther up, we see the potential for even higher amounts farther up here in Southern California. Northern Cal, outside of San Francisco, you get to the mountains south of Silicon Valley, we're seeing 1 to 2 feet of snow. And then north up towards Napa Valley, a little bit of snow, but higher amounts in the mountains. So some major snow. This is something you just don't see in many years across California, just very extreme. Get ready to brace for that. Severe weather, we have an enhanced risk, which means we could see a moderate risk of severe weather here by Sunday evening over southwestern Oklahoma, and maybe an enhanced risk along and east of 35 here for Sunday night. So Oklahoma City and Wichita are kind of right in the middle of this, but even North Texas is included all the way to Dallas here for Sunday night. And this could expand to bring a little severe weather Monday eastward into Missouri and parts of the Ohio Valley, but a bit too soon to make any calls for that. You'll see we've got strong winds coming out of the southwest aloft, a strong flow here out of the southwest, and that is going to feed into this storm system and produce a lot of wind shear in here. And, the potential that we could see some supercell storms as well when we get into this pattern here Sunday afternoon along the dry line, and then certainly Sunday evening things kind of peak. Mainly southwest Oklahoma, north central, northwest Texas, big sky country, all have the potential to see some supercell storms. And this threat does include, let me go find the time frame here, it does include southern Kansas, southwest Kansas, when we get into Sunday night, but then things kind of lower as we get farther east into the day on Monday. But still a possibility here in the lower Ohio Valley of seeing maybe some stronger storms. We look at lightning and we see the map gets very busy here for Sunday evening. This is 6 p.m. Northwest Texas looks pretty darn busy. And then even just central Texas all the way up into Kansas in the evening. And then things will start to weaken after that. But we still could see some storms. All right, that's off into the future there. Pivotal Weather is a great website, but it is very difficult to navigate. All right, so here is the European. We see storms all the way into Nebraska Sunday night and into the Kansas City area, and then things quickly fade by the time they spread eastward into Illinois. And I will show that to you. And y'all can stop already here. All right, so this is Sunday night around midnight. This is late Sunday night, Monday morning, and we could see some heavier storms as the European indicates here, all the way into West Virginia and eastern Kentucky on Monday morning. But severe weather is not going to be quite as likely through this. The following storm looks like it could be a little bit more robust here on Friday of next week, and we may see widespread severe weather over the Mississippi Valley by next Friday. So that's a lot to talk about. I really appreciate y'all's time today. If you could join my Facebook page, facebook.com/JoshSevereWX, and post comments if you'd like on the graphics that I'll share. And if you could subscribe to my channel, I will have another video for you tomorrow and one on Saturday with lots of weather to talk about. I really thank you all for your time today. God bless you. I want to give all the glory to God, and I want to thank him for giving Jesus Christ to me to save me and to save many others. And I just want to read a quick verse that resonated to me about Jesus. John 16:33, I have told you these things, that in me you may have peace. In the world you have oppression, but cheer up, I have overcome the world. And I feel just so much encouragement from the word, from the Holy Bible, especially the New Testament, just the encouragement that Jesus is there to overcome all the evil that's in the world, all of the war, the oppression, the difficulties many of us face from day to day, whether it be health, financial, personal relationships, addictions. But Jesus is there to save us all from that. And eternally, we have life through him, but you have to accept him first. And as a Christian man, I'm happy to say that I have accepted him. It's been almost 10 years since I've done that. And I want to encourage you, if you're struggling in your faith, to maybe go out in faith, and I'm happy to pray for you about it. One of my great friends, 13-year-old son, last night was baptized into Christ, and I didn't get a chance to be there for it, but just things like that are happening worldwide, even in the face of what the world tells us is not really acceptable. But it's really hard to ignore that. And I just wanted to share that and get that off of my chest today, because I just think it's been weighing on me heavily. But I want to just, give all the glory to God for everything he allows me to do and many others to do, in that we can certainly make a difference in the world and help show the light to what is there for us eternally. Thank you so much today. I really appreciate y'all's time, and I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk again tomorrow. Take care.